Hey everybody, my name is Paul Eston Jr., aka Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BoyGreen25. We're also streaming live simultaneously in two other locations, the Heavy on Jets Facebook page to over 20,000 New York Jet fans, and on my Twitter account, at BoyGreen25. Now, we normally have this guest every Monday on our shows, which again is always streaming available on my YouTube channel, and occasionally when we could get it on the Heavy on Jets Facebook page as well. That is Will Parkinson. Normally that is every Monday, but I'm actually kind of glad that he had something else going on where we had to delay this conversation. This won't be quite the normal hour plus we do. Again, we did do a full hour live stream on the channel that you guys can check out on my YouTube channel. Again, youtube.com/BoyGreen25. This will be a little snack size, 25-ish minutes, but you guys can feel free to get involved wherever you're watching in the comment section, and we'll bring you up here on the show. We're going to react to the NFL trade deadline, which of course was today at 4 o'clock. The Jets did make a move, but also we'll talk about some of the moves they didn't make. And Joe Douglas spoke to the media earlier today. That full presser is available on the Jets app and YouTube channel. We'll play a couple of clips we cut up on our Twitter account. With that being said, let's bring in our resident Jets insider and host of the TOJ podcast, Will Parkinson, to the show. What is up, Will?
Yeah, busy day, busy last couple of days. Well, that's good. My my ring light went flying, but how's that? Tough loss on Sunday, and
yes.
Now we're back.
Yes. Yeah, 100% we are. And, of course, moving forward and looking ahead, I will just say the quick nugget on the Jets-Patriots thing is just, again, a game they could have, would have, should have had. And I haven't felt often that I can walk away from a Jets loss saying, man, the Jets were the better team and they blew it. Normally, maybe other teams could argue the other way around when they're playing the Jets, but they will get their revenge opportunity in a handful of weeks. Buffalo this week, bye week, then New England. Of course, that one a bit more difficult in Foxborough, but not a big difficult deal for the 4-0 Road Warrior New York Jets. So perhaps they did this on purpose so they can continue that streak in a couple of weeks. We will have to see. First off, Will, let's dive into the trade deadline deal the Jets did make today. Nothing sexy, nothing that's going to splash any headlines, to be honest. I was watching the NFL trade deadline special on NFL Live, and they simply said, yeah, Jacob Martin moves around a lot. Anywho, back to the other big moves. So they barely gave it any PT, but that's why we got this show. Jacob Martin, a guy the Jets actually signed this past offseason, a 3-year deal for $13.5 million. They're expecting this guy to be a key cog of the defensive line. They move him essentially just to move up around in the 2024 NFL draft, where they'll go from the 5th round to the 4th round, packaging Martin with that. What do you think of the move, and maybe what the move can actually open up for some other players on the roster?
Yeah, so I was just tweeting out the PFF changed Sauce Gardner's his grade and no longer got credit for that touchdown. So
good work by Sauce, by the way, tweeting that out in a since deleted tweet. Very nice.
You gotta look out for your own sometimes. I think the trade makes a lot of sense. Jermaine, there's the Jets invested quite a bit in edge and defensive line all offseason. Jermaine Johnson's coming back from injury. Bryce Huff, who you kind of felt like Martin was brought in to be what Bryce Huff, has been. I thought Bryce Huff was really good last year. I think he was banged up with injuries. Couldn't stay healthy. And, the Jets went out and tried to make a move to solidify that with a little bit more of a proven asset. Bryce Huff obviously is in his, he's got, his expiring contract. So, they bring in, Jacob Martin, showed some flashes, but Bryce Huff's pretty much established himself as the, NASCAR third down speed rusher. And, they free up some money this year, free up some money next year. They've got to extend guys like a Bryce Huff on top of, some other players, as we know, and bigger names like a Quinn Williams. And they move up from the 5th round to the 4th round in 2024. So save a little bit of money, pick up a mid-round pick. It's not a game-changing move by any means, but it allows maybe some space in a game-changing way that maybe Jermaine Johnson's getting 20 reps and Bryce Huff gets 25 now. And, Vinny Curry's had some moments, and obviously JFM and Lawson and other folks. So, I was kind of curious if Jacob Martin would get moved, and, the Jets moved off him pretty quickly, but I think they realized what they have in a homegrown talent like Bryce Huff needs to be on the field, and you want to make sure you get your first round pick involved as well. I know he's been banged up. So, they need to see what they have in Jermaine Johnson as well as Huff and Lawson and JFM and others.
Well, but I don't know if you can even explain this to me. Again, you are our resident Jets insider here, but I'm not even sure the most inside information you have could possibly explain this. I was just looking it up as I was doing the article. We have a full piece on this Jacob Martin thing and what it means in terms of the trade. The Jets had Bryce Huff as a healthy scratch for the first 3 weeks of the season. He was not good enough to even be a part of the rotation. Now you could say good enough, scheme, whatever. He was just a healthy scratch. That's the facts of the facts, Jack. And then all of a sudden, he's played in all these games. He's had this elite pass rush win rate. So were the Jets just dumb? Were they just trying to overthink themselves? Were they just trying to give Jacob Martin? They thought he was better or was going to translate better to the scheme or maybe a little bit of everything. Like, what happened there? How was Bryce Huff a healthy scratch for the first 3 weeks of the season?
So it's funny enough. I had Bryce on the show the Friday before the opener.
Nice flex. Yes, you did.
And he was all pumped up, ready to go.
Oh,
and then I'm gassing it up. Bryce was on the show. He's going to get a sack because he was on TOJ and then doesn't play. I understood it in a sense. I didn't really fully understand it. So just caveating with that, he was good against the run last year. He was good against the run last year as well, but he's, your traditional edge rusher in terms of like a speed guy. He has the most natural bend, I would say, of any of their edge rushers. So the Ravens heavy, 12 heavy, 13 personnel team where they're going to, he maybe wasn't the game for Bryce Huff. He kind of understood it there. Then you go to Cleveland and it's kind of the same excuse of, big power running team. Mm-hmm. Again, you kind of got it. The Bengals game was the one that was like, what are we doing here? That offensive line, which we've seen the Jets kind of are the only team that hasn't really exposed that offensive line, which is a little frustrating.
Yeah.
It's more in part because of who was playing quarterback for them that day, but whatever. And so I just didn't get it. They kind of used the excuse he's a smaller body guy, et cetera. I think it came down to Bryce Huff got banged up a little bit in camp. Jacob Martin is a guy they brought in on pretty decent sized money. We'll give him the first opportunity here. And I think when he came in week 4, Bryce Huff practiced well, got himself, healthy, et cetera. And he came in week 4 and has shown the numbers with him on the field versus him off the field there's a stark difference. Not only just his own personal numbers, but everyone around him seems to eat when he's on the field. And I know it's third down, so obviously those numbers can be skewed, but when it's usually him, JFM, Q, and Lawson, like kind of what we envisioned in a sense from a pass rush perspective, like they get pressure pretty much every time. I mean, obviously the big game changing play. So I think maybe, yes, he got a little banged up in camp. He had a little bit of a back muscle kind of thing. I think it kind of comes down to the paycheck in the beginning of the year. And we've seen this before, obviously with the Jets, and not just the Jets, every team. You're going to lean on the guy you bring in, the free agent, this guy's a little higher paid. We have expectations. I think we've seen this from the Jets offensive line wise in the past. We've seen it at other spots. And then things start to kind of fall into place and you go, let's just play the guy that's the best player.
Right. Yes.
And I think they realized that. And, credit to Joe Douglas. Something that I think we've all been somewhat critical of him and at times being a little stubborn with some of his guys or some of his moves. The Jets realized this pretty quickly and they moved off it. And they said, nope, this may not have been the right signing. We've got our own guy in the house that's cheaper, better option, younger option. Let's move off it. And I don't want to always just heap praise on Joe Douglas because I think people get tired of it. But I do think in this sense, realized Bryce Huff and the staff realized Bryce Huff and Jermaine Johnson should be getting those reps, moved off him, saved a little bit of money and got an extra, not really an extra pick, but a more valuable pick, in the year following, which they may need if, God forbid, they have to trade for, a quarterback or something like that in the future.
100%. I think 2 people gave notes, so I'll give credit to both. Zach Rosenblatt said, actually, moving from the 5th to the 4th is a lot more valuable than just getting a 6 or a 7. So Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic saying that, and by the way, that makes sense. And then also, I got to give a shout out to Buffalo Jet fan, another Jets content creator out there. He said, this isn't your grandpa's Jets, and I'm going to paraphrase general manager, where 4th-round picks were guys like Chad Hansen and Shaquille, what's his name, wide receivers now like in the CFL. Like, it's not those guys. We're talking about Max Mitchells and Michael Carters. And I went, That's another good point there again about that. Although now I'm trying to find the conch from like Anchorman where I can say, I could grab it and just blow into it, go Bryce Huff season, assemble all our Bryce Huff stands out there that are now finally, again, more reps and blow on that thing heading in. So that's phenomenal news. Let's talk about the move they did not make. Again, there's been a lot of hubbub about Elijah Moore. Now I'm going to play this clip for all our fans who are watching. For everyone who's watching here, because again, Joe Douglas spoke to the media. This was not live stream, but the Jets did put it out of the presser out after the fact. I love hearing clips sometimes as opposed to reading tweets. We'll throw this up. This is Joe Douglas responding to receiving and fielding some calls on Elijah Moore ahead of the NFL trade deadline.
Yeah, did you give any consideration to trading Elijah, or was that not going to happen?
Look, we had some calls, but at the end of the day, like Robert said, Elijah was always going to be a New York Jet.
So with that being said, I want to ask you, Will, because I'm going to be honest, I've not had the pleasure of hearing the Michael Kay show where it sounds like Joe Douglas is a lot more emphatic in that stretch. And again, guys, if you missed it, again, Joe Douglas said, yeah, we took some calls, but as Robert Saleh said, he was never going to be moved. And if he was never going to be moved, then you probably wouldn't have taken the call. So I think you never say never. However, it sounds like he was a lot more emphatic on the Michael Kay show in saying that like there was no way that he was going to be moved. And again, what else is he going to say? Of course, why would he? No, it was pretty close. Now, of course, you're going to say probably that he wasn't, but it sounds like he was a lot more emphatic there. Again, what do you make of now hearing from Joe Douglas in both of those senses on not moving Elijah Moore?
Yeah, so here's the.
Okay.
I don't know if we can hear
to
it.
trade Elijah Moore.
No, not at all. And Coach, I know Coach has discussed it. There's no chance that we were trading Elijah.
We're in the middle of the gangrene report.
Okay,
So,
good.
yeah.
All right,
I don't know
no
if it came
chance.
through.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, that did. That came very clear. So no chance. So again,
Yeah.
he was it looked like it from when I was reading a couple of quotes. Again, I haven't heard it myself yet, but it seemed very apparent that he was a lot more emphatic there.
Yeah, it seemed like. Look, we've talked about this. I came on here and everyone was like, "Oh, you're an idiot." There was no way. Look, could Elijah be moved in the offseason? Wouldn't surprise me. I think that's a conversation to be had down the line, and I think you could see that happen. I'm not sure we have or will ever see Joe Douglas trade from a position of weakness. And if you're the Jets and you see Chase Claypool, who is a clown in his own right,
yeah,
and not very good. If anyone's watched him since his rookie year, he's not very good. And he just went for a second-round pick that is potentially a pretty damn high second-round pick now. Like
Correct.
the Bears are not very good, and they just traded Robert Quinn and Roquan Smith, who are probably their two best or most well-known players. That's a lot for Chase Claypool. So they got their own return. So the Jets were never going to settle for anything less than a high 2, right? If you're the Jets,
right? Why would you? 100%.
He has 2 years left of cheap control. He's 21 years old. He's a good player, and look, I'm not going to get into. We're not doing a political show. I'm not getting into the tweet about some stuff Kyrie and Kanye Irving have been talking about, which I think is gross, and I'm not going to get into it because this is not the show for it. But whether it's that or and objectively, the quote on Sunday was pretty funny. Like if you're not a Jets fan or like it was
it was hilarious.
It was funny. Now, if you're the Jets fan or you're a player in that locker room,
probably not as funny.
It makes you wonder, how many other guys feel that way, and that's again another whole discussion. But the Jets were never going to trade Elijah Moore unless they got above value, and Joe Douglas always gets his his price and all that stuff.
Sure has. Yep.
Like I'm sure if some team, the Packers we've used for example, the Bears or any of these teams came and said, "Here's a first-round pick for Elijah Moore," yeah, I think the Jets may have moved off him.
Yes,
that obviously didn't happen. He said we took some calls, but this wasn't the Jamal Adams. We take calls on every player because the Jets were clearly shopping him. This was we're not trading him. We were never going to trade him. But if you want to call and offer us some crazy value, sure, we'll listen. The Jets will listen on any player on their roster. They've made that very clear. Someone could call today and say, we'll give you 2 1s and 2 3s for Quinn Williams. Yeah, the Jets are probably taking that deal because then they're hoping they get another Garrett Wilson, Elijah Vera Tucker, or whatever. So I think they made the right move in not trading more. I think they made the right move in not trading Mims because now you get 9 games of hopefully Denzel Mims playing somewhat like he played on Sunday. And now in the offseason, if you want to move off Corey Davis or restructure him, you can. And if you
have options, right?
Yeah, you have options. Again, the Jets have a core group of 5 really talented wide receivers, and I'm not going to include Jeff Smith in this. Sorry. So now we'll get 5.5 talented receivers, but the offense looks really good right now with a true X, whether it's Corey or Mims, Garrett Wilson or Elijah Moore in the slot, and the other guy playing outside, and Braxton Berrios kind of doing his thing. There's a lot of options here, and the Jets are trying to develop their quarterback. They're going to trade one of their most talented weapons at a position of weakness just because he's not getting the ball right now. These things get figured out. He got benched clearly. Then I think Sunday was you're back, but we're not going to just hand you the keys right away. And people can be mad about it, and I get it, and I understand the frustration. I thought on Sunday in the second half, you got to prove your point. Now let's get them the football. But look, maybe against Buffalo, they come out and he has a nice strong game, and they go into the bye, and the vibes are back and good, and everyone's feeling strong. So I wouldn't overthink it. I didn't ever think they were going to move him, but again, if team would have called with a first round pick, maybe they would have done it.
Yeah, so let's go there with Elijah Moore again. Where do we go from here? Now, Robert Saleh seemingly kept saying this in his press conferences and radio appearances. I can't wait for the trade deadline to be over because now you guys can't ask me these questions anymore. Now, Elijah Moore's on the team for the rest of this season. There's nothing, obviously, that's going to change that. So, again, so he was deactivated for a healthy scratch against Denver, did not play. This past game, he plays 10 snaps, but basically is a non-factor. Now, where do we go from here? Do you believe he's just, okay, enough of a punishment, even though that's not what the Jets called it, but enough of a punishment here. All right, slap him on the cheeks. All right, go on, kid. You're back in the full reps that you were in before. Because, again, he was playing a lot, just not getting the ball. Do you think it's full bore? Is it a gradual workup? What happens here now with Elijah Moore throughout the rest of the season in the coming weeks?
So I do think you'll see a lot of, I don't think Elijah's – they need to find a way to get him the ball, and I think they need to find a way for him to be part of the offense. I think maybe you see a 50% uptick in what you saw on Sunday. So I think it was the one play that got batted down that looked like they could have started to get involved. And
that was the one target. Yep.
Yeah. It's that one's disappointing because it's open. Zach actually made the right read for once, and footwork wasn't bad and just gets tipped. And I think again, I didn't love the game played on Sunday, and a little, I thought it was fine. I don't love throwing that much against New England, but whatever. There was a lot of guys open, and if you watch back the tape, it's a lot of Zach just not seeing the field or making a bad decision. But yeah, I think they start to increase it. I think maybe again it's a 50% uptick, so maybe he's playing back to 50 or 60% of the snaps this week, and then he gets back to an even higher number against New England the second time. They need to find a way to get him involved, or at least make him somebody teams have to respect, because Garrett Wilson's performing really well. And they actually finally got in rhythm with Zach, which was nice to see. It's one of the quiet best things of Sunday was him, although except for the second interception, he hit him when he was open and things, the big play, obviously. And
sure.
This offense has had a chance to be really dynamic with Moore, Wilson, Mims, Davis, Berrios as just the receivers, let alone some of these tight ends. Even some of the backs they still have are talented. So they got to figure out a way, but it's also creative ways to get them involved, whether it's maybe giving Elijah Moore one of the jet sweeps, or maybe getting Elijah Moore a tunnel screen or a bubble screen of just letting him get 8-10 yards, start to get him feeling strong, get Zach an easy completion. I think, you'd like to see that because Buffalo's going to try, I know we're getting into it a little bit, but the Jets are going to see the exact same defense they play on Sunday. Mm-hmm. It's going to be Zach goes against this defense every day in practice, and there's a lot of pressure with 4, dropping into some zone, dropping into some man. Mm-hmm. They want to just light you up with 4 guys, and Jets need guys that are going to get open, find zones, and Elijah's really damn good at it. So I'd like to see him get involved. And again, I'm going to give him 15 targets, but maybe 3, 4, 5 targets. Ease up some of this tension going to the bye, so we're not talking about this for 2 more weeks. Because obviously, I think you and me would both agree. As much as I love Elijah, I want to talk about him having good games, or
yes,
maybe his play on the field, not necessarily his quotes on Twitter.
100%. And again, guys, make sure you're following Will Parkinson on Twitter at that very handle if you're not already, at WillPa11. And again, make sure you do your part if you're watching the show and enjoying it. Give the video a like. Also, hit subscribe down below as we are streaming live on YouTube along with Heavy on Jets and the Twitter account. We'll be here for a few more minutes here as we're diving in. I want to play another clip here. Some good news. I'm going to be honest, wasn't expecting this. I'm glad Rich Samini asked this. An update on Mekhi Becton, who, of course, was lost and we were expecting a comeback season for him. Joe, you'll hear both Rich Samiti's question and Joe Douglas with an encouraging update on Mekhi Becton. We'll talk about his future.
Joe, can you give us an update on Mekhi Becton in terms of where he's at in his rehab and where he is physically? Is he rehabbing at the facility? And what your plan is for him next year in terms of when he could get back on the field?
Yeah. So Rich, Mekhi had the procedure out in LA with Dr. Elatrash. He stayed out there for a few weeks. He's been back in the building since I want to say early last month. And he's been back, been rehabbing every day in our training room. I know his focus is coming back next year in the best shape he can be, and as healthy as he can be. And again, we feel really optimistic that he's going to be full strength for OTAs.
Which sounds beautiful. Again, if you had just missed that last little nugget there from Robert Saleh, he said that Mekhi Becton is expected to be back for OTAs. This is a bit of a futures question here, Will. I know coming off the deadline, it's a lot of the present and things of that nature. How do you think the Jets are factoring him in? Are they again, is it one of those, hey, we're preparing for the worst, hoping for the best, so we're almost pretending like he doesn't exist and we're dealing with our offensive tackle situation, and if he ends up being anything, oh, phenomenal. Or are they giving him a little bit more credence as they kind of configure their plans heading into the 2023 season?
I think you're going to go – I think you plan on Mekhi Becton as either he's a guy that you move on draft night or right before the draft for a day 2 pick. If someone's willing to offer it, you probably take it at this point just because it's hard to count on the availability.
Right.
I think you'd love to see him come in healthy. He wins the right tackle or left tackle job, whatever is open. And but I don't think you count on him as one of your 2 starters in a way they did this year. I think you look at guys like Mitchell, maybe he competes with him for the right tackle job, and the Jets say we let the best young player win. And left tackles held down by Brown or Fant or a Tunsil trade or AVT for that matter. I think you look at it and say you hope it works with Mekhi. You'd love to see him come back in shape and stay healthy. I think he's a good kid. I think he means well. He's super talented, but he's never been healthy the last 2 years. The staff has been here for 2 years and will have never played a game, barely even played a preseason game. Actually, I don't even think that's not true. He's played a preseason. He played half of one game,
right?
Obviously last year before getting hurt. So yeah, he's not someone you count on, but I think he's a guy that he'll rehab with the Jets. You'll get him healthy. You'll see what you can offer. You get maybe a potential trade again. Maybe after free agency, a team doesn't get their tackle. The Jets are sitting at hopefully in the 20s in the draft, and a team at 12 misses their tackle, and the Jets want to trade up for a guy, and they trade Becton and a pick for to move up in the draft or something. You know what I mean? I think you look at that 2020 class, and a lot of these guys will either get moved in the offseason of trading or maybe you package them to move up in the draft or move back or acquire capital, whatever it is. But you look at it, even an Ashton Davis, these guys were hey, can we flip Ashton into a 4th round pick in the future with, Ashton in a 5 for a 4 or something like that. I think with Becton, it's, can we trade Becton in a 2 for a 1 or whatever it may be. So I think you count on him and you hope that he can, you don't count on him and you hope he can come back healthy because it'd be great. It'd be awesome
Sure.
if Mekhi, came back healthy, but you can't go in with him being a starter and then having to pivot to a Dwayne Brown because those guys are not always going to be out there, and you might not always have the money they had this year where they were able to swing something for Brown.
100%. Let's get 2 quickies before we get you out of here. So we have the Buffalo Bills game coming up as well. That will be incredibly interesting to see. Just quite frankly, I guess we'll start there. We'll start with Buffalo and then work our way back after that. What are you expecting? A game that no one has given the Jets a lick of a chance. The line opened at 12.5. The last I saw it just yesterday was 13. So again, the line is just
it went up again, 13.
Oh my gosh, 13.5. So all the money's going towards Buffalo. It seems a little bit of an overreactionary line based on everything we've seen, but nonetheless, all the money's going to Buffalo. Buffalo's a Super Bowl favorite. They're everything in a game that, again, no one's giving the Jets a lick of a chance anywhere. What say you about this game? What are even Jets' expectations? You go in here and try crazy crap like fake punts and do whatever you can. Do you just try to line up and say, you know what? Bills are probably overlooking us. All these people are overlooking us. Let's just square up and see what we can do. What do you make of this matchup?
I think you go test yourself. Why are you scared of Buffalo if you're the Jets?
Right.
You think you're a playoff team. There's a chance the Bills could be the 2 seed and you're the 7 seed and you're seeing them just like the Patriots did a year ago in the wild card round. You hope that doesn't happen to you, but if you're the Jets, like, don't you want to test yourself against the best team probably in the league? And you're at home, and yeah, there'll probably be a bunch of Bills fans there because they travel really well. But this game's been sold out for 2 weeks now. Like, there's no tickets on Ticketmaster even. Like, if you wanted to go and whatever. So no, I think you pull out all the stops. You're going into the bye. Like, why holding back? Why hold back? You're not supposed to even compete with the Bills. Obviously, you have the worst quarterback ever, and you're the Jets. So why don't you go compete? I think you want to establish the run. Like, the Jets competed with Buffalo decently last year. I believe it was 10, about to be 10-3 going into the half. Corey Davis fumbles, and like that team was super undermanned. Mike White threw 4 interceptions, and it got ugly in the second half because the Jets left Brandon Knuckles on an island against Diggs. But you learn from those things. That was kind of like a game where, like, can we just test where our young guys are? We're super undermanned. Obviously didn't go well. They go back up to Buffalo. Defense competed their tails off, and they could probably with a decent any type of other than Tariq Black and Keelan Cole, maybe they compete a little bit more in that game. I think they were down like 5 linemen too. But maybe it's fake punts. It's cleaning up special teams. It's getting Zach to be like, okay, you played well against the Bills, or you played decently against the Bills. You're going in, you have a bye now. Get yourself right and going into New England and look like a way different quarterback. So this is a big. I think this is a big game for the Jets because no one I know they probably very likely will not win, and obviously Vegas thinks so. I think nobody's going to pick the Jets as they shouldn't. But Bills kind of coming off a big Sunday Night Football win. They're going to sleepwalk maybe they sleepwalk into MetLife, and the Jets are competing. It's 13-10 going in the third quarter, and you're feeling like that'd be pretty valuable for a young team that's trying to gain experience playing big football games that matter in the middle of November. Like that's a big deal. So I don't expect a ton from Sunday, but they also shouldn't be getting blown out anymore, regardless of the opponent. This should be a game where, early. I don't know if you're making me. I'm sure I'll do a pick on your radio show, but maybe it's a 28-17 loss where they compete, they look decently, the offense looks okay, and you go, all right, now we know what Buffalo's got. If we do these 3 things right, we're better. Like, I want to see Sauce versus Diggs. I want to see.
Oh yeah.
I think you tweeted out once they don't have a 100-yard receiver, like the Bills don't win, and when they do, they always
interesting.
Win. So,
yeah,
maybe can Sauce go? If he's gone toe to toe with a lot of guys. Diggs is a big trash talker. Sauce is a big trash talker. It'd be nice to see DJ Reed on Gabe. Whatever it is. So again, do I think the Jets are going to win? No, but I think they need to be competitive at this point. Like, you can't be getting blown out by 2-3 touchdowns at home. Not going to cut it. Not against a division rival and not against a division opponent, regardless of how good Buffalo is.
I agree. And by the way, Robert Sala has a few pelts on the wall already. Cincinnati, Tennessee, these teams that ended up being in the Super Bowl, the number 1 seed in the AFC. So he has a history of beating teams that he's not supposed to. So again, I don't know. We'll see. We got more Jets Buffalo stuff coming up later this week. Real quick, Zach Wilson. So Robert Sala and Joe Douglas, for that matter, both say he's our quarterback. We're riding with him the rest of the year. Outside of injury, he's our guy for the rest of the year. I ask you, Will, is there a leash that if Zach Wilson implodes 1 more time, 2 more times, anything, do they waver on that and go to some other option? Or no, it doesn't matter. They're riding this train.
I just don't see a reasoning why you – because if you do that, you're saying Zach's done. It means you're already
100%. I agree.
He's done. This isn't like a Mac Jones. Like there's no excuse. Like you're done. Obviously.
There's no injury. Yeah, right. 100%. Yeah.
I actually thought early on Sunday he looked pretty decent, and then it just kind of all fell apart.
Yeah.
I mean, he still missed some throws, but it felt like he kind of started getting rhythm there, and then the one bad throw in his brain exploded.
Yeah.
Look, you can't if you bench Zach. I get it. They're a playoff roster. I tweeted the other day, but this year is all about 4 things. Do you have a playoff roster? The answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a head coach you think you can win a Super Bowl with? I think the answer is probably yes.
Yeah.
I think do you have a GM that can build your Super Bowl roster? I feel like you probably think you do.
Yeah.
And do you have a franchise quarterback? I think they've gotten the answer already to probably 3 of the 4 questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not ready to make an answer one way or not on Zach through 18 starts. Through 27 starts, I'd love to get to 36, but through 27, I think you kind of know what you have in Zach a little bit. I think, even in Jalen Hurts or Tua, their numbers started to increase there. I think Tua was a lot of durability and the arm strength and whatever. He's obviously playing very well. Jalen Hurts was a lot of like, can he throw and, in structure and all this stuff. And they've surrounded him with talent. And he looks really good in year 3. And like, yes, maybe you get to that point, but if the Jets finish the season 6-11 or 7-10 and they totally collapse and Zach's the reason, you go, we're literally a quarterback away. The Jets make the playoffs and Zach's still terrible. You go, we're a playoff team that was no one expected to be a playoff team, and we have no quarterback.
Right.
Or the obviously great situation is Zach starts to improve, play much better, and you make the playoffs, and now you go, okay, one more piece at, whatever position, one more offensive lineman, we're good. So Mike White's not going to be your franchise future starting quarterback, so it doesn't make any sense. I get why they're doing it. Another guy they'd love to get value on in a trade down the line, right? Or he's the long-term backup. So I also just think people didn't watch Mike White play football last year outside.
Oh my gosh, terrible.
Quarters. He had 13 turnover-worthy throws in 7 quarters, which is, last time I checked, pretty bad.
Yeah.
Wasn't good in camp at all. Couldn't beat out Joe Flacco for not only the backup job, but Chris Trevler was better than him in the preseason and was playing with worse guys. So I like Mike White. I thought last year was fun, and it was a fun fad, and I get it. It was the Linsanity, all that stuff, and it was a fun win, one of the more fun Jets wins in the last 5 or 6 years.
Context.
Context. He played the Bills last year and pooped his pants. So
yep, he sure did.
I'm good seeing any Mike. I'd like to I know Zach's frustrating. I wanted to pull my hair out watching the tape on Monday morning. But you got to just see what you have here. And it's got to be more than 1.5 bad quarters. That he's had more than 1.5 bad quarters, but it needs to be more
I see what you're saying.
A New England level. When they go up to New England again and he throws 5 interceptions, we probably need to start having a conversation of like, dude, what's going on here? But again, it's still Sal said today, some guys have to go through the bumps in the road and figure it out. And you hope that Zach goes, this is a lesson, dude. Like, you thought we were kidding about throwing the football away. You have got to throw the football away. Second interception, I know it was a bad call. It was clearly out of bounds. And
I thought so too. Clearly
it was really
out
weird.
of bounds.
In the stadium, it looked like it, and I think the Patriots knew it. And then they just it was like not.
The ref just said, "Nope, confirmed. It's good." And I'm like, "What? Confirmed?
It's
what?"
just, I think it feels like Zach's caught between a rock and a hard place where he's trying to take care of the football and his eyes are right initially. But then he won't pull the trigger on open guys, and then he starts panicking and he backpedals, and that's the stuff where you can teach guys better habits. Also have no patience for Ryan Fitzpatrick's comments on the quarterback coach situation. Dude, their quarterback coach tragically passed away days before camp opened. They didn't just bring in John Beck. You can criticize it all you want. They had to panic because their coach died.
Yeah. So I don't buy any of that either. So thank you for saying that.
Maybe just research a little bit of what went on. Again, Zach needs to play better. I'd like to see Zach take a little more accountability personally. It's the quarterback. I think Sam almost took too much accountability at times when the roster also stunk.
Yes,
but
right.
He'd be like, oh, it's all my fault. You weren't good either, but, neither was Brashad Perryman. But, the team didn't play well overall on Sunday. If you really think about it, some missed tackles, special teams was atrocious. Offensive line missed some play. Zach was was very much the primary reason they lost.
Yes.
But I don't know. I'm not going to give up on him yet. I'm concerned. I'm heavily concerned because I think some of the bad habits we saw last year have not changed. It's a lot of the backpedaling and drifting in the pocket. And do you not feel like weird? I know I will wrap here in a second.
Yeah.
How many of his interceptions do you feel like have been the last 2 years have been a defensive player making a good play? I feel like the Carolina one, right? We go through.
Oh yes, Shaq.
Shaq on the first game. That was
pretty good.
That was good.
That was a good cut.
The New England game tipped the ball. Maybe the first one was bad.
Yeah.
The first one was a nice play, maybe, but the second or third ones were just rolling out and stupid.
Just dumb. Right.
Basically what happened yesterday. The Texans won, hit off Ty Johnson's back.
Oh, terrible. Terrible, just kind of flip-flop. Unlucky.
But again,
unlucky.
That's what's weird is these all – and this year, the one against the Steelers, the first one, that's on Zach. That's a bad throw. It wasn't even a good play. Whatever.
No.
Maybe
there hasn't been some crazy the Mac Jones play and the crazy one-hander from Jaquan Brisker, right?
Yeah,
there hasn't
been
playing
just amazing defense. It just feels like he self-sabotages himself. And
100%.
It feels like that's fixable at least. It's not as if he's playing perfectly and still getting picked off, meaning, oh, God, there's a regression coming, which is what I think we've seen with Mac.
Right.
With a guy like Mac or Trevor Lawrence, where you were getting kind of lucky, and now you're not getting lucky anymore. I feel like Zach's like made his own luck bad in a sense. I don't know how to
Yes,
explain
right.
it. Like,
That's an interesting way to put it.
I don't know. We'll see it on Sunday. I mean, if he has 2 interceptions, but they're great plays by Trey White or these guys, I'm fine with it. I don't mind him turning the ball over if it's going to be because his eyes are right, it's the right read, the defensive player is just better than Zach. That happens in the NFL. It happens to everybody. What happened Sunday, specifically the last 2, just need to stop. Those are so easily salvageable. I'm not going to beat up his completion percentage because he threw the ball away. I think that was the Pittsburgh thing. Lastly, like that we were all pretty happy about. If like, yeah, he had some turnovers, but he actually threw the ball away most of the time. And you're like, oh, I don't care about the completion percentage. He led us to a victory.
Yes.
Get back to that. Get away from the bad habits. He did it against Green Bay, got really lucky, and Denver got really lucky. Didn't get lucky on Sunday.
No, he didn't. And I will just say that, again, I'm nowhere near jumping off the Zach Wilson bandwagon. Again, the 3 interceptions were god-awful, but there were so many explosive places Joe Douglas was pointing to during the game that makes me feel great. Again, if he cuts that out, I think he's in good shape. We'll end on this at YouTube Super Chat coming in from Pooch Guy because, Will, you, pat on the back to you, were really, I think, the first person I remember even mentioning the Laramie Tunsil thing that really went to Jet fans, and it went crazy, it almost felt like months ago when you brought this up as a possibility. It went crazy on Jet social media and then led to Conklin Tunsil. Adam Schefter mentioned it on a Monday Night Football broadcast. So anywho, was Tunsil ever a real option for the Jets and really their interest in terms of looking at the offensive tackle? And obviously we want to kind of pair that in with the Jets were rumored interested, according to Peter King and Bradley Chubb, the Broncos pass rusher, who ultimately ends up going to the Miami Dolphins for a package that includes a first-round pick that was originally the San Francisco 49ers. So kind of working that in, kind of what do you think AFC East-wise of the Dolphins getting that quote-unquote going all in on a guy like Bradley Chubb? So feel free to address the Bradley Chubb and then the Tunsil thing if you really thought it was real for Pooch Guy. And by the way, Pooch Guy, thank you so much for the super chat and supporting the show. We appreciate it.
I hated the trade for the Dolphins. Bradley
like
Chubb's
hated it from a Jets perspective or just hated it from an NFL looking at it like, whoa, what were you doing?
I just think the Broncos made out like bandits.
Interesting.
Bradley Chubb's is a really nice player. I think he's a good player. He's having a nice season. He has like 7 sacks since his rookie year, and this is, like he's in year 5 here.
Right. He had Von Miller. That's another
Von Miller
point.
next to him. He's had multiple years, missed basically the whole year with injury, 2 years in a row.
Yep.
You have to pay him $20+ million a year.
Correct.
He's on an expiring contract, and it felt like Joe Douglas let a little birdie out of the tree there to and get Miami to pay more. And
I hope so.
A 1 and a 4, whatever it was, for Bradley Chubb, who's on an expiring contract when you're a team that they need edge help. But I mean, it's funny, but like their Vegas odds didn't change at all today to win the Super Bowl.
Yikes.
And they basically have no draft picks now the entire year. I think they don't have a 1, 2, multiple, right? I think they traded everything for Tyreek.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I think you're right. I'll pull that up.
I'll pull it up, but I know that obviously they traded. They got their pick. Oh, they got the pick forfeited, if we remember correctly.
So they already had their one lost. So right, there should be no first round picks that they have.
So I don't know. It doesn't put them over the edge. You have to pay him. I think the Jets. I know the Jets called on him. Benjamin Albright reported it. Peter King. I'm sure the Jets called on Bradley Chubb. Why wouldn't you call on him? He's a talented edge rusher. But the Jets weren't going to pay a first-round pick and then pay $20+ million to Chubb. And then you still have to pay JFM 12 to 15, Q 20+ next year. Likely you have to pay Carl Lawson. You're going to pay eventually. You're going to probably have to extend Bryce off here. Like it wasn't going to happen. The Tunsil thing makes more sense in the offseason. I think,
as opposed to midseason. That's true. Yes.
His cap hit next year is like $35 million. It's just because it all got backloaded. So wherever he goes, he's going to need a new deal. He's 28 years old. He's a great player. He's probably a top 3 or 4 left tackle. I'm sure the Jets would have had to part with their 1, which again, I think if Zach was playing out of his mind and they still had Breece Hall still at AVT and they felt like, dude, we get Tunsil here and we could win a title. I think they would have done it.
Right.
They would be more interested, but in the offseason, it makes more sense, right? Maybe Dwayne Brown walks away. They can get out of that deal as opposed to June 1 cut if they really want to, which kind of feels likely if Dwayne Brown's playing a torn rotator cuff. I think he wants to just give it one more go, get that money, and get out of here, which, again, I wouldn't blame him, but then the Jets would have a spot left tackle, move Tunsil left tackle. I think it's a name that you'll see connected to the Jets all offseason. It seemed like with the Texans, even with Brandon Cooks, like the price just seemed like they're not going to budge on some of these guys. And I guess why would you? But the Texans are probably going to have the number 1 or number 2 overall pick, and they're going to be able to get some more picks in the offseason. So Tunsil made sense. Chubb, to an extent, made sense. I said the Chubb one's confusing to me. Him and Claypool, I felt like pretty big overpays for teams that Chase Claypool really going to make Justin Fields that much better. Like, maybe. I doubt it. I guess he's a cheap guy in a second, but like they gave up their own pick. They didn't give up the Ravens pick.
That's correct. Right. It was misreported at first.
Yeah, it was misreported at first. So like that pick's way more valuable than the Ravens one. And with Chubb, I don't know if you're the Broncos, like you gave up all this stuff for Russell Wilson. Now at least you've recouped.
Correct.
You have first round pick, and maybe you can package Russell Wilson because he stinks. But at least I don't know. The Broncos in a weird spot, and felt like Chubb was going to walk anyways. Didn't you feel like that? I felt like he was going to walk
felt that way.
anyways. So to get some good value, I don't know. If you're them, Miami's got to pay him now. They're paying a lot of guys.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They're going to pay. I think they were mentioning, they might have to pay like between Tyreek, Armstead, and him next year, be paying like $70 million. Like,
that's just 3 guys. Yeah, right.
You better hope everyone stays healthy because the depth's going to start to wane there, and you could lose other talented guys. So Miami's really good, but if you're the Jets, I think they're going to follow their plan. Connor Hughes asked about it. What do you balance? Like, I think if you're the Jets, make the playoffs, figure out what you have with Zach, and then you make your superstar blockbuster move in the offseason for a tackle or whatever it is. And
100%.
You hope that you're a team that's competing for a Super Bowl in a year.
Okay. Pooch Guy, again, thank you so much for that. Will, I want to thank you for your flexibility, of course, because, again, we were going to do this before, and then Joe Douglas Presser, okay, audible. Yeah. Oh, let's punt, baby. And so I appreciate the flexibility. Before we get you out of here, of course, platform is always for your plugs. What do we have going this week for Jets Bills week? Then, obviously, we have the bye week next week. So what do you got on the TOJ podcast and others for the rest of the week?
Rest of the week, I have Quincy Avery coming on, who's quarterback coach.
Oh, wow.
A lot of the big names. We're going to break down what's going on with Zach and where it could get fixed and maybe some things that can't be fixed that could be concerning. So we'll see how positive the episode is or not. Guess you'll have to find out. And we'll talk a little bit about some non-Jets quarterbacks, some of, Quincy's guys like Justin Fields and where they've improved or where they still have to improve. So I think it'll be an interesting conversation with somebody that's, sees a lot of these guys hands-on and
fascinating.
So we'll see there. Steve Gelbs, who hosts pre and post for the Jets, will be on later in the week.
Nice.
And then we'll see if it's going to be this week or next week. More likely during the bye. Will Parks, Justin Hardy, and probably Sheldon Rankins will be on the show. So so it'll be a bunch of good stuff. But make sure you guys are tuned in and subscribe and gave away some Zach Wilson's Sauce shirts, and hopefully we'll do some stuff and shamelessly listen to Badlands as well. Connor and Joe do a great job.
Hot damn on the guest. Oh my, you just went, boom, 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 name dropping over here. Will Parkinson for the host of the TOJ podcast. Will, thanks for the time as always, brother. And we'll check in with you next week as we get ready, of course, for the bye week.
Awesome, man. Talk to you later.
There he is, Will Parkinson. Everybody follow him on Twitter @WillPaw11. Thanks, everybody.